So the first thing that I said to myself when I saw the new Evoker class for PvP is, Evoker? I hardly know her. Okay, just kidding guys, but I was playing Evoker last night and I want to show you guys the build that I came up with. I am going to do an in-depth version of this build in the future and I'll keep you guys updated as the build evolves. Right now this is basically day 2 of the beta because the first few, you know, they had a lot of issues with server stability and stuff. I have created a permanent protection Evoker build running Spear because I'm very familiar with Spear Catalyst. So I had some ideas for what I wanted to run. Initially, I was actually planning to run the fire trait line and do like a might stacking build, and I would run fire and air and run fresh air, and that way I could switch back and forth between the elements super quickly, between fire and air, and like pump a bunch of you know, zaps from, what is it, this skill right here or this trait right here, and go back into fire and stack might, and it was a colossal failure. But I ended up doing it with earth and it worked out really well because I discovered the permanent protection running the toad here. So I'm going to show you guys the build and then I'll show you guys a little bit of commentary on kind of how the build works and what its strengths are. But yeah, so let's get into the build real quick, and before we do that, let me just click this right here. If you guys want to take a screenshot of this and then, you know, copy it onto your own template and mess around with it, go ahead. So this is all the traits and everything I'm running. Again, we're not going to go super in depth on traits, but let's just get into it a little bit. So Berserker Amulet, because we are permanent protection, you're very survival in this build. You're going to have Stone Heart, and so you're going to have stability, you're going to have resistance coming from your heal skill, you're going to not be able to be critically hit, and you're going to have permanent protection. So I did Berserker because there wasn't really any reason to run anything else. I found myself being extremely tanky and having incredible healing just running this as is. Claw, I messed around with 2 different ones. Claw is if you want a little more damage. You can also run one of my favorite relics, which is Flock, to give you an extra 1460 healing instead of the extra damage. Claw synergizes really well with Spear because every time you get a daze or a stun or a knockdown or something like that, you'll get the extra damage, so you basically have a permanent 7% damage increase. The Toad as well, it's worth mentioning, gives a daze, and then whenever it's fully charged, it'll give you a 2-second knockdown. So it's really strong with Claw. So anyways, just keep that in mind. Anything that has CC is going to be really strong with this build because it's all about CC. I ran Warrior, Rune of the Warrior, because it has the most vitality and it's mixed with power. I think there's one other rune that has that much vitality, but it gives like boon duration or something. Not really applicable for this build. I mean, you could. Ultimately, I want to do the power so that I have more damage. But you need the vitality because Elementalist has super low vitality. So again, Spear, I've got Energy and Cleansing. You guys could mess around with these sigils and try something else. Energy and Cleansing are just a super solid pick so that you have the extra dodges. And you do need a little more cleanse with this build because you don't have a ton. Okay, so going into the traits, again, I'm going to do this very briefly. The 2 main ones coming out of Earth are, as I mentioned, the Rock Solid. Every time you swap into Earth, you get stability, and you get 2.5 seconds of not being crit when you swap in to Earth, and 1 second of not being crit when you swap out. So that synergizes really well. And just for those who may not be familiar with Evoker, what happens is whenever you are in, so I chose the Toad, which is associated with Earth, the familiar. So when I'm in Earth, I'm going to be charging the Toad, and when I swap out of Earth, I only have a 2-second cooldown between swapping out and being able to go right back in. So I can go into air, you know, spam a couple of skills real quick, go right back into Earth, and I'm getting that stability. I'm getting barrier, by the way, as well. Bunch of things. Basically, going in and out of whatever element is associated with your familiar is always super strong. So just keep that in mind. Super low cooldown on Earth. I can constantly go in and out, so it synergizes well. Air, you guys can look at these. These are kind of standard stuff. Lightning Rod, again, there's a lot of CC, so you're going to deal extra damage. Inscription here, I went with this glyph because it gives you protection, it gives you barrier, and it breaks a stun. And you're going to be in Earth a lot, so you can use it for cleanse and water as well, and it gives you regen, and it's a stun break again. So, you know, you can use it in air if you want to daze somebody. So there's kind of a few uses. Fire, not as strong. I mean, might and burning is fine. But for me personally, I try to use it in Earth a lot to get the protection and the barrier. So yeah, and then the final trait line, you can look at these. This is probably the main trait here, gain protection when you disable an enemy. Protection duration is increased if you have the toad. So that's the biggest thing with the toad. Every single time you disable an enemy, which is all the CC we were talking about, you're getting 4 seconds of protection. So that right there is the main thing that's giving you your permanent protection. This one's pretty standard. Extra damage at certain thresholds, reduced damage at other thresholds. The extra damage is what you want because you're a power build with Berserker. The reduced damage is what you want because you're a protection build. You're trying not to get hurt. And then the final one here, this one is actually, I've swapped between this one and the one below it. So this one, Familiar's Prowess is improved. Heal yourself when you use a familiar skill. Basically, you're spamming the familiar skill because if you hit them, it's going to give you barrier. And you know, it's going to heal you. It's going to give you negative incoming condition damage and incoming damage, so it's basically giving you a kind of protection. So this is like very survivable. You could run this one here if you'd like to remove conditions, and you'll see the toad is then going to give you protection if you run that. So keep that in mind. I tend to find I don't need the extra protection or the extra cleansing as long as I'm careful. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say about the traits. Again, I'll do a full in-depth guide later once we've ironed out everything past the beta and everything like that. Quickly with the utilities, I have the Rejuvenate skill. When you pop this, it fully charges your familiar. So if I like use it right here, and well, okay, that unlocked the elite one, so let's use the elite one. Then I pop my heal, boom, it's back up. I can use it again. So you can really use that, and you could even see there when I had that charged, I was able to stun, use it again, get a knockdown, pop that, use it again to get another stun or daze. So very, very strong there because you've also got the daze built into Earth already. You know, you've got CC in water, you've got a lift CC in air, so yeah, a lot of CCs, and you can see that my Relic of the Claw is pretty much permanently staying on there, as I talked about earlier. Lightning Flash I use for mobility. It's just really, really nice to have the extra mobility from Lightning Flash to get around the map. I'm starting to use that skill more and more and more on Elementalist to the point that I almost don't ever want to give it up just because of the extra mobility. There's so many different port spots. I've played a lot of Willbender and Thief, and so I'm very good at utilizing that. Another option you could use is Arcane Wave, which would give you some more mobility and extra dazes. But again, I love Lightning Flash. I've kind of fallen in love with the skill, so that's what I like to use. Glyph we already talked about a little bit. Using it in Earth is extremely strong. And then the final one here is the Toad's Fortitude. This one, again, synergizing with the build. It's a 30-second stun break. It's a stun break because we use the Toad familiar. Each of these skills becomes a stun break if you're using the specific familiar, so fire, water, air, and earth. So I'm using the earth one to give more protection. It's also a block, which I didn't notice at first, but you'll see it channels a little bit of a block there, so you can actually use it to counter a skill, maybe a really damaging skill or a knockdown or something that somebody's about to give, which is nice. And then the elite here, this skill, I'll be honest guys, I haven't fully found out the main use for it. I just use it as extra damage, especially if I get close to somebody and I'm like stun locking them, you know, with the toad and stuff. It just, you can see it just dumps everything on them. So, and you know, you don't really have another option at a good elite skill. I mean, you could run maybe the Earth Elemental, but other than that, you know, maybe you could run Tornado to get more CC and stuff. I find this one to be the best. It does give you some combo fields that you can maybe heal out of. If you wanted to, maybe you could run like Arcane Brilliance instead of Rejuvenate. But yeah, I just find it to be a good, like, if I'm already locking them down and I'm dealing damage, or if there's a bunch of enemies all jumbled up, I just throw that on them and it just kind of causes chaos there. So yeah, that's the build in brief, and then let's just go ahead and switch over to some commentary, and I'll just explain to you guys kind of how the build works there. Okay, so I want to show you guys a few situations where you'll see Evoker really popping off. So I come into this fight and I drop the elite because I see the Willbender's almost dead, and I also wanted to heal my teammate here. Ultimately, we end up doing the damage to both of these guys pretty heavily. Get the Scourge down, we get the Willbender down as well. So I come in, drop a bunch of skills, we get a couple of kills, and then I'm able to kind of pull out. So extremely helpful to my buddy JT there, one of the war pigs. Shout out to the war pigs. I get that kill and I come back to mid here to cap. And at this point, I was calling out to the team, playing with some guys in War Pigs. And I was calling out to the team and actually telling them to trickle to home, which is normally a bad strategy. However, right here, we've got mid, and I knew that the two guys are going to come off spawn and want another shot at our Luminary, at our Guardian. And so I come back and I'm telling him, if you can just survive, I'm going to get there. You know, I'm almost there. And so do a bunch of damage to the Willbender, get him down. Scourge is coming back. Yeah, so now we're in this 2v3 situation. And I know I've got to be careful. Now this, I was trying to sort of slow them down, but I end up having to DPS out the Willbender here in order to get my teammate up. So I pop the Elite knowing that that's going to give me some damage. I CC the guy that's trying to stomp my buddy here, JT, and that stops him from being able to stomp. Then we put a bunch of damage on the Scourge and drop him, and then it's just the Gale shot here. And pay attention to, you know, how much damage is being done to me in these fights, and also pay attention down here to my boons, and you'll see that the protection is pretty much permanently on, which allows us allows me to deal a lot of damage, you know, without getting too hurt. And you can see I haven't even used my heal skill. But I'm still full health there after that entire, you know, 2v3 encounter. So this build is really strong because, again, every time I spam that familiar, I'm getting healing. And then I'm constantly getting protection every time I CC, which is constantly, especially if they're close to me, because that toad is going to CC them if they're in that 240 radius. So, alright, so I look up and I see that, you know, Post is having some trouble here at mid, but he has one down. So I decide, okay, great time to do another, you know, 2v3, or at least 2v2 since one was already down. But I come in and you'll see the damage I did there on that initial hit was pretty strong. Post goes down because he was pretty low. So I pop my Elite again on the middle here, and I get some help from the teammates as well. And we ultimately just drop these guys. So they get plussed, but at this point it's a 4v2. So just kind of doing our thing, dealing a bunch of damage, but you'll see here how helpful the Evoker is when it gets a +1, especially when I use the Elite there and drop a massive combo field. So now Gale Shot has a lot of mobility. You'll see here that Gale Shot kind of gets away, swap to Air and use Air 3 to get the speed. And then I see that my buddy JT here is doing a 1v3. And so I decide, all right, if I can get a kill really quickly, I can get him up. And I see the Reaper here, so I'm like, all right, Reaper's going to DPS out. Let me try and pick up my buddy, but no, I can't get health on him in time. But I decide to push it because, you know, I've got a couple of teammates here, and, you know, I have permanent protection, so let's push the limits of the build, right? But we get into this 3v3 here, we get one down, we get plussed again. Admittedly, we over-rotated to far here, but you know, it's better. Everybody's trying out their skills, and you know, we wanna keep killing them. So you'll see there, like I popped my healing skill, and immediately now I get stuck. For some reason, I missed the jump getting onto the bush there, and then I get chained, immobilized that is, and I just can't get off of there. But the minute the immobilize goes away, boom, I'm out of there, and you can see I've still got protection. I blow my heal, and boom, use some water. Immediately, I'm full health, and I do know that Post actually dropped a skill on me there from Ritualist, I think it's called, the new Necro Elite spec, and apparently he gave me a skill that lets me heal every time I use abilities. So absolutely spiked my healing back up. We've pretty much won that fight there on far. So then I'm rotating back off because we've got 4 people at far, and we've kind of lost map state. We really weren't guarding that top lane, and so they were able to kind of just run past and begin capping and decapping. Now this Gale Shot, you'll see, which is a really strong spec, and this player I happen to know is pretty good. I saw him in the pit dueling people, but he just couldn't do anything to me there because I'm dealing too much damage to him, and I have my permanent protection. So it's really hard for him to get anything going, and especially with all of my stuns. So I dropped my elite skill there knowing I'm going to finish him off, and he's just dead. And just like that, without even using my healing skill, you know, I'm back to full health again. So again, this is a very, very strong build, especially in the 1v1 setting. I was actually dueling in the pit for a little while Anya, a Jones boy, on Amalgam, and I actually managed to kill him a couple of times. Now, ultimately, he pretty much slaughtered me overall, but it was close each fight. So here's a quick clip of me going against a Conduit, which is the new Revenant Elite spec, and you will see here that I just absolutely drop him. There's way too much damage, and there's really not much he can get going there. Now I'm going to show you guys the second encounter because he comes off spawn, and he does a lot better. I think I kind of caught him off guard the first time, but you'll see I miss a few skills. You know, I don't play quite as well this time, but even when he gets my health down, immediately I'm just healing. I should have dodged there through his sword, I think 3. I can't remember which one it is on Revenant because I don't play it, but so just using, you'll notice I used a couple utility skills there to give me some protection. You know, using some barrier from Earth 3 and from my glyph. So I'm just out tanking him here. I go back into Earth, and you can see my health just, it goes down and then it goes right back up as I use different healing skills and stuff. So he did okay against me there, but ultimately he just could not deal enough damage, even though I didn't play very well. I didn't dodge some of the skills I was supposed to, and I didn't land some of the skills I was supposed to. But I'm constantly able to just spam my heal skill, and I believe in this one, I think I was running Claw instead of Flock. But still having plenty of heals to keep myself alive. And then just one more encounter for you guys. You'll see here we're coming into mid. We've got it down, and I decide to kind of take a bit of a 1v1 with a Gale shot, but the Amalgam kind of comes up behind me, starts doing his burst. So I have to back away, and you can see I'm in a dire spot here. But I drop my elite to get some combo fields going, specifically the water one. Go into Earth, I get some extra barrier, I do some attacks that then puts the Gale shot way on defensive. Then I'm able to use my heal skill, which just spikes my health up to 10k. I use Lightning Flash to get out of it, get some more barrier from going into Earth. Again, I'm getting barrier every time I swap into Earth, especially when I pop that Earth number 3 skill. And so the Gale shot, or excuse me, the Amalgam ends up running away, but ultimately we killed the Gale shot, and I got out of a situation that honestly I had no business getting out of in a regular situation. So hopefully that shows you guys a little bit of the survivability of the spec. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know if you're having success with the build, and I will continue to update on my channel as we learn more about the Evoker and the beta itself, or the new Elite specs in general. Once we get the full release, I will be putting more content out there, so please like and subscribe if you want to see more. And yeah, y'all have a good rest of your day, and let me know how you do in PvP.